As you know, time is elastic. As Bill Gates said, we tend to overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and we tend to underestimate what we can do in 10 years. I would sometimes apply that to what I could do in 1 day. I always tend to overestimate that, and sometimes we underestimate what we can do in a longer run. And so, but what are the goals behind? What is our purpose, and why just engaging in sometimes in such kind of rat race? And so that creates other questions about what is the time of life we would have to have in order to live in flow. And so when we apply that to startup, it's all about accelerating, about going fast, about doing within a few years what traditional SMEs are doing in 25 years, in a generation. And so you have to validate product market fit, to do some proof of concept, to optimize your sales cycle, to generate recurring revenues, to generate free cash flows, and to play a strategic and commercial game in order to reach some goals, which may not necessarily be profitability, but to de-risk your project in order to be acquired. And that's why it's really a very fast race, and that's why startups are fascinating, because they are exponential. And so that's why time management for the team and for the entrepreneurs themselves is absolutely key. And so basically we could see two types of companies, more kind of lifestyle companies, traditional ones, where you take off rapidly with few fixed costs, limited fixed costs, and so far so good. But if you create deep tech companies, you have to invest a lot, and then to accelerate rapidly in order to take off and ultimately be profitable. Both strategies are possible, but it's a matter of choice. Of course, the pressure is not the same. The necessity to live with other stakeholders is not the same with an innovative company. And so it's all again about momentum and taking off. And so when we summarize all that in financial figures, of course, time is of essence, because you have to generate future cash flows. But if these future cash flows are too remote, they are discounted by a huge weighted average cost of capital. And so that has to be compensated by the prospect of generating absolutely huge cash flows. And so these formulas are ruthless. With these formulas, you can value any type of companies. And of course, time is of essence. But of course, behind math, we always have entrepreneurs, persons who dream of changing the world, and who think that sometimes the laws of gravity don't apply to them. And but they also have to take into account these future cash flows, and to know that they will have the freedom of their few cash flows. And so that brings us back to time management applied to startups, and to Tilde's experience. So Tilde, tell us a bit about your personal experience and your current research about time management.
Very good. Well, let me just blow it up right in the beginning. You ready? Everybody hold on, because you need to strap yourself into your chair or wherever you are. You will never be able to manage time. So let me just start with the bad news first. You will never manage time. You can't, and there's a lot of reasons why you can't. I'll go into those as I talk about my research. Here's what you can manage. So I gave you the bad news first. Now I'm going to give you the good news. The good news is you can manage your relationship to time. And that's what I work on. What I work on is that most people think that time is linear. And if you look at your clock, or you look at the way time is measured, it looks like it's linear. First, there's 1 second, then 2 seconds. Pretty soon there's 60, then there's an hour. So it looks like it's going in a linear direction, but you're a human being. And let me tell you something, you're not linear. So trying to be linear when you are a being or an ontological type of entity, you're going to run into some problems. So I know that many of you on the call today have issues of procrastination, issues of not ever getting everything done you say you're going to get done on your to-do list. There's a million things and we will talk about them. But I came to Toulouse mainly because since 1997, I've been giving courses called Making Time. In 1996, I discovered when I was apprenticing to lead a 6-month program that people in that program were doing projects in the community that were to make a difference in that community. They were learning how to be better citizens, how to have an impact in a large group. And one of the things that the leaders got measured in is how many people started the program and how many people finished. And that ratio had something to do with how you went up in the leadership and how you developed. Well, when I was apprenticing, a lady started with the woman who was leading. I was learning from her. She had 75 participants and 15 coaches. Coaches are people that have already done the program. And if you're in our MSIE, you have a coach when you do your project. If you're here on the call today thinking about the MSIE, that's one of the things that happens. You do a project during your time at HEC and you have a coach. By the end of that lady's program, 50% of the people that started didn't finish. And I panicked because there was no way I was going to lead a program where 50% of the people walked out the door before it was over. So I'm a graduate of Cornell University, and I went back to my university to some of my professors and I said, help, how do you deal with time? How do you keep people in the seats? What do you do? And I started doing research. At that point in time, maybe there were 10 or 15 research journal papers about how people deal with time. Specifically, what happens if you feel you have time poverty or time shortage. And they were pretty interesting. So I started with that. I started using some of the things that the researchers were talking about. And when my course started a year later, I brought my people in for some extra sessions and I did these formats with them. And I'm very, very happy to this day to be saying that I started with 75 people and 15 coaches, and I ended with 75 people and 15 coaches. We were the only program in the world to have nobody leave. So I knew I was on to something. I just didn't know what to call it, and I didn't know how to package it. So over the years, I gave that course both in corporations and for individuals, executives, and things like that. And people had a profound shift in the way they dealt with time because they stopped using time linearly and started looking at their relationship to time and how they interact with time and what their habits are about time. And things made a huge difference. I don't know if I can move the slides, my friends. Somebody might need to move slides for me. There you go. So there are definitions of time that are really important that nobody really knows about. There's real time. That's the time that's clicking on the atomic clock in Colorado that's run by the National Institute of Science and Technology. In fact, all the governments in the world said to NIST, okay, you be in charge of time. We don't want to worry about it. You use the atomic clock and we'll follow you. So your life is actually determined by the atomic clock that lives in Colorado. Subjective time. What do you think about time? Time is moving really fast for you. Time is moving really slow for you. I think everybody on this call would say that in their businesses over the last 2 years with the pre-pandemic, then the pandemic, now maybe we're coming out of it, the whole sense of time that you have has probably altered to some degree. And for many of you, it might have altered tremendously. So there's subjective time, the way you come to time and the way you look at time. And then there's clock time. Clock time is what's happening on your watch or on the clock on the wall. Sometimes you're on time according to the atomic clock, sometimes you're not. But many of you on the call today run your life by the clock and not the other way around. you're looking at the clock to tell you what to do. You're not telling the clock, oh, I'm going to be at so-and-so's at such and such a time. And when you're in business as an entrepreneur, let me tell you, if the clock is running your life, you will probably bump into some really big problems as an entrepreneur. So I am in the middle of writing a systematic literature review. So I'm not going to bore you to tears with what it means to be a PhD, but thank you, Dr. Krieger. What I'm actually doing is looking at all of the literature right now about time poverty. Why? Because not having enough time is the brick that creates the issues about what you're facing in business. So if you are actually working at a deficit with time, then your business could be potentially in trouble. You could potentially having some issues maybe with well-being, with relationship. And I don't mean just personal relationships, just the relationships maybe with your vendors or with your customers. So I'm looking at what the literature is saying right now about time poverty. Where is it and what is it saying? Because I would like to move the theoretical dial about that in the future as we do actual research. I mean, research where there's people and you keep statistics and that kind of thing. Etienne? So I just went through all of that. You know, we're not going to cover all of that, but it's just important to know that all of those time aims that I talked about, the way time works, does affect you very, very deeply. Go ahead. So what are some of the things as an entrepreneur you want to be aware of? These are some of the things we're dealing with in the lab, both now as I write my thesis and as I start to do my PhD work, hopefully this next year. Time awareness. Are you aware of your time? Are you aware of what you're doing with it, what your people are doing with it in your company, what your family does with it? It really does make a difference sometimes to stop and see exactly what you're doing. I'm not going to go through all of these. You're welcome to have a copy of the slides. But time awareness is probably the first step that all of you want to take as an entrepreneur. If you don't know where you are and how you deal with time, then you are going to run into some trouble. Etienne? So there's some inclusion and exclusion factors when you do a PhD and you're writing a document like I am. And of course, we have a package arrive. You know what? Only in the MSIE can you do two things at the same time. I'm just saying. I'm only looking at literature from 2000 onward because literature before that, can anybody guess, put it in the chat. Can anybody guess why looking at time poverty before 2000 might not make much difference? Let's look at the chat and see if anybody can come up with why looking before 2000. Yes, exactly. Aiden O'Brien, you win a pizza the next time we're together, wherever you are. I'm just saying. Yep, pre the internet. Everything has changed since the internet. Everything. So I'm Bordeaux. I'll be there tomorrow. Yay, it's in France. Okay, make sure you talk to me in the chat when we're done. All of the studies on time poverty only focus on time management. So that gets back to what I said too before. If you're an entrepreneur and you think time is linear, but you're actually a human being and you're trying to manage time from a human being perspective, you're going to be in trouble. And also, personal time studies are very important. Like in Great Britain, they actually keep track of what people do every day. There's like an institute that analyzes what people do every day from the time they get up until the time they go to bed. It's very interesting. And entrepreneurs in England have a step up on many of us around the world because they're actually in reality writing down what they do so people can actually see what works and what doesn't work. So I'm looking at a lot of data post-2000. I'm looking at qualitative data, which is interviews, and quantitative data, which are statistics. And I'm interested in the way people are measuring their time. Etienne?
Yes.
I think we have another slide, my dear.
Another one?
There should be. It's your slides. You're the ones that's next. Oh, it's okay. Why would people be interested? Well, forget about researchers. If you're interested in maybe doing a PhD after the MSIE, you should talk to me about that. But let's look at management. What if you could hire people that you knew what their time stamp was, how they use time? You would probably be able to put them in the best job for them, the job that's going to be most productive. Maybe you could find new pathways of behavior. And one of the things that I'm very much committed to, and Etienne, and I think Cheryl knows this too, I'm really interested in having real science apply to business and real science apply to the working environment. And that's part of why I'm here in Toulouse and as CEO of a company. I'm doing both things at the same time. Okay, Etienne, back to you because you've got some great slides.
So not back to you, back to me, back to you, Tilde, because so what's your experience in entrepreneurship and innovation, and what were your initial dilemmas? Did you procrastinate as so many entrepreneurs and PhD students, because procrastination, of course, is an international sport? And then the next question is, what are your current challenges with Momentum, and what's the 10 years vision, and what would be your advice for future entrepreneurs? And so do it as you want, but what are the dilemmas for an entrepreneur?
Okay.
Why this life choice? Because you succeeded in many things, and why launching a startup company?
Absolutely. So let's get the cat out of the bag. I am the oldest living graduate of the MSIE. I'm 70 years old. So I'm 70. I'm not 40 or 35. So if there's anybody on this call who has a concern about their age and being an MSIE or being an entrepreneur, you should forget it. I intend on lasting as long as I last. And part of that is because I love to work and I love what I'm doing. So that's number one. So I started out of Cornell. I've had three major types of work. I did legal work as a legal researcher for about 10 years. Thought about going to law school. Glad I didn't. Then the second part of my life, I was a product manager. So I was at different companies over 10 or 12 years managing products. So Pepperidge Farm cookies. If you've ever had a mint Milano, an orange Milano, or a raspberry Milano, I designed them. I designed those cookies, okay, me. So I was the product manager. I did a lot of work at Campbell's Soup and other places. So I was getting some inside business training by being inside of a company. I felt like an animal in a cage. I love the cookies, don't get me wrong, but I kept thinking, I'm not providing anything. Okay, I'm providing you cookies, but it's not personally satisfying. The last part of my career has been an entrepreneur, taking these training courses, making time, and going out to clients and literally changing the way the individual or the business does their work. And it's been the most gratifying thing in the world. But as I got older, I was using old technology. I was using ideas from Cornell and from some other coursework I did post-baccalaureate, but it wasn't fresh. So I came to the MSIE to get like a B12 shot. Like, shoot me up, you know, let's get real. Let's find out what's happening in the world today. And I'm telling you, it was like being frappéed at Starbucks. Like, you get into the MSIE, you start doing the coursework, and you start to see all the little holes in your business. Now, along the way, I have been pretty darn successful. I've raised $110 million in my career for startups. I love startups. Not so much because it's fast, and Etienne loves to talk about how fast it is. It's not the fast part that's exciting. For me, it's creating something from nothing. It's going out there and seeing that something is missing, the presence of which would make a difference, and then having that difference be made. One of the things you'll see in whatever fuel-oriented autos are left, whether it's trucks, I know everything's moving to electric, but I think there's still going to be some fuel-based autos, whether it's trucks or cars, they're going to have a little sensor in it in the oil pan that reads the oxidation of the oil and tells you when to get an oil change. That was my project. It was sold to Fisher for tens of millions of dollars. And it's going to make a difference for people keeping their cars in good shape. So that's the kind of thing that I loved. And the more that I was in the MSIE, the more I kept saying, well, I've got this training program. Everybody says it's great, but it's really old school the way we're delivering it. So I came in to the MSIE, offered it as a project for people to be a part of. And darn it, 3 of my classmates said, oh, I'll go with Tildy. And we blew the company up. We blew it up. We went and we pitched on pitch day. We did pretty well. But then the dilemma of dilemmas, let's talk about COVID. COVID knocked us on our derrieres. We were going for hospitals and hospital supply companies to give our training. And we all know that there's not a hospital in the world that would do any training during COVID. So we had to go dark. And we certainly have been still talking to individuals and corporations, but we thought we would just, fizzle out. Like we would go away. We would never be able to work. We have another member of the C3, that's cohort 3 of the MSIE, named Chris Roberts. Chris and I are very close friends. And one night he said to me, I have something to tell you about your company. He did our course, by the way. He did our course and he goes, I got something to tell you. I said, what is it? He goes, you need to blow it up again. I go, what? What? Are you on drugs? We just blew it up in Paris in front of Dr. Krieger and the rest of the people. He goes, guess what? You need to do it again. And then he told me about an app that he saw and how it affected him and how cool it was. And we should think about doing our courses the way this app does their courses. I said, okay, let me download it. Let me look at it. And just everybody's information, we have blown the company up again. We are in the middle of getting ready to do the app. And we're going to do it Chris's way. Because you know what? He was right. So one of the things you face as an entrepreneur, as a startup, is are you willing to listen to other people? Are you willing to go through the challenges of COVID? Are you willing to hang on and bootstrap? Are you willing to go for a Le France Tech grant? Now, I'll tell you what else we did. We went from being an American company to a French company. We are now a French-owned company. We're French. We're going to drive this thing home because the hottest place to be a startup is France. Our 10-year vision, I would like to stop being the CEO, and I'd like to, when I get my PhD, to be the head of research and development. There's a lot of cool things that can be done for families, for students, for all sorts of people about time. And I want Momentum to be on the leading edge of that. So I don't want to be the CEO. I want to be the head of research and development until whatever day I decide I want to go to the beach and live at the beach for the rest of my life. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but it could. So the 10-year vision is to run this company and probably sell it to somebody like SAP, somebody that's in the HR space that could do a really good job with it. That is what my board is talking about now. So we have an advisory board, we have a board of directors. The board of directors would like to sell it within 10 years. So here's my advice to you. Figure out what you're doing about your time. If you want to know how, I'm going to give you something from our course. You ready? If you're procrastinating, here's the first question you need to ask yourself. Did you say yes to something that you meant no to? Did you say yes to somebody because you wanted to be well thought of, you wanted to do the right thing or whatever, but the truth is you really don't want to do it? If that's true, then you got to learn to say no. A lot of you on the phone are procrastinating because you said yes to something that you meant no to. So if you want to find out what the other 2 questions are, you've got to come and do the course. Enough said.
Whoa, thank you so much, Tilda. So you are the living example of not only happiness, but of somebody who found one's ikigai, so one's purpose, and aligning those four famous planets about what you can do, what you love to do, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And that was not necessarily the case at the beginning of your career, as you said, because designing products, but it didn't make sense. And so it's up to all of us to invent and to design the type of activity we want to be in. There is this famous Harvard research about happiness and health. I think it's a research carried on over 75 years, and it's a mix of interactions, satisfaction in life, having more emotions of happiness than emotions of anxiety. But again, it's specific to all of us. And of course, it's also an issue of saying no to some things. And that may be the way not to procrastinate. So thank you so much, Tilde. We now have a Q&A session. So participants may use the discussion, the chat box if you want. And we are perfectly on time, so thank you.
We try harder. Oh, wait a minute. Where'd the chat go?
Tilde, here's a question from Eric. What is your ikigai?
Golly, I guess. So I came back to France to give back to the French people everything they gave my family when I was a kid. So if I'm going to talk about my ikigai, I think it's when I wake up in the morning, I breathe French air, I walk on French ground, I eat French food, and I go to a French university. That's it. 62 years I dreamed of coming back here. And it's because of Etienne Krieger and HEC Paris that I'm able to live a life that I love and a life that I live powerfully. That's really the truth.
Whoa.
And another question from Roberto. How did you find the right people to collaborate with?
So on July, I want to say it was July 17th, Cheryl. Wasn't it July 17th that we had the beauty contest, the final one?
So, yes, somewhere around there.
Right there, right around there. Like July is a really special time for Etienne and me. So we pitched with this video. I was by myself. I was talking about the course and what it does. And it went around. Everybody got a chance in the cohort to look at all of the people's videos. There were 17 of them. And all of a sudden, Cheryl calls out group number 16. And the screen went black. And the next thing you know, 3 people's faces came up, and they were 3 of the people that I love in the cohort. One who was the second student delegate, Eddie Chan, and the 4 of us were in love with each other from day one. So I would say to you, you got to see who comes to you. You have to look at who's attracted to you and who's attracted to your company. Make sure there's a fit, because Etienne and Mark, Mark would say to you, if you're at the project stage, you got to make sure that you know who each other is and that you like each other as people. You're willing to work through everything. And that's how it came to be. That's what we look for. Are people into what we're into?
Okay, thank you, Tilde. Another question from Gail. Could you provide information on the courses that Momentium offers?
Yes.
Is there a book or another way to know more on what you are doing?
Well, there is a way. I have a slide at the end. This is the first time we've ever done this, but on the call today is Alejandra Ruiz Gomez, who is from the C3. She's our CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. She's also the owner of Momentium in Latin America. And we have a slide for you. We are going to give you the course. And so at the end, I'll put the slide up and you can come do it for yourself.
Yeah, can you share it?
Yeah, let me share. Let's see. Give me a minute. Whoop. Let me see if I can go find it. Why don't you take another question, Cheryl, while I'm trying to figure out the technique here.
Okay. All right. From Mitsuharu, excuse me for the pronunciation, Mitsuharu, how do you think we can avoid to be overloaded when in a project?
The best way to have your projects not overwhelm you is to start at what you have to produce at the end. I think you just lost me. Wait a minute. Hold on. Whoop. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you, Tildy, but we
Cheryl.
see the email.
Okay, great. Because it looks like, I don't want to do that. Hold on, let me get out of here. So the best way to do it is to go to the day that you want to produce, the day you want to be on the shelf, and work your way towards today, right? And break it into smaller pieces. Do not try to eat the elephant all in one day. Now, for some people, that's easier said than done. You have to practice it, but I promise you it's the best thing to do, for sure. So that is the most important thing that you can do, is not try to do everything in one day. The other thing is, stop using your brain as a computer. It's not. It's there for you to think. Start keeping what we call master tasks lists, not to-do lists. Get a mind dump. Get everything out of your brain. One thing for your family, one thing for the car, one sheet for your project, one sheet for your child. Get it all out. And once you do that, you can see how much you have to do, and you can pick what you need to work on every day, because what I work on the weekend is different than what I work on during the week. And day to day, it's different. So get the stuff out of your head. It's a bad place to be. I'm just saying. Go ahead, Cheryl.
All right. Next question from June. Could you recommend a book about time that is not linear?
Yeah. Making Habits, Breaking Habits by Jeremy Dean. That is the first thing that we always encourage our advanced class students to read. Making Habits, Breaking Habits by Jeremy Dean. Let me put it in the chat. I just lost the chat. I don't know where it is. There, where we, I don't know what happened to it.
Making Habits, Breaking Habits, Jeremy Dean?
Yes.
All right.
You start with that book and you've done part of our work.
All right. Next question from Kent, slightly off topic, but could you please explain why France is the hottest place to be a startup?
So that may be for me or for Tilde. Come on,
you
Tilde.
go first.
Why
you go first, and I'll go second.
I think France is very startup friendly for some years because we have lots of incentive schemes for entrepreneurs, incubators like HEC's incubator, support programs, tax haven like Crédit d'impôt recherche, and so France is very competitive, and there is also a talent pool. With brilliant engineers, scientists, and all that makes a very specific mix that makes France very competitive compared to other countries. But I prefer to leave the floor to Tilde to ask her why she came to France to launch her company there and not in California or Delaware.
Oh, I did enough work in Delaware to last me a lifetime, trust me. Why did we come to France? We had a board meeting when COVID became really bad, and I had just been accepted to TSM, to Toulouse School of Management. And our coach from HEC was on the call, and we became very aware of how committed this country, France, is to developing itself to be a leader in what's wanted and needed in the world, no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's sustainability, whether it's luxury, whether it's whatever. It all starts at HEC. I've got to be honest. If it wasn't for HEC and the people at Station F, I'm not sure I could say the same thing. But the professors at HEC, like Etienne, said, we need to do something. And the government listened. and the ministers listened. So many of us from the US are on our way here, not because we're trying to take over, but Silicon Valley doesn't speak to me. Silicon Valley is interested in a unicorn. I'm not a unicorn. I'm a 70-year-old woman who just has an idea about how to make life better. I don't need Silicon Valley. I need a bunch of French people who want to work hard and discover something new. And look at who we are. Marie Curie. I mean, you know, I could go on forever about what's been discovered in France. So when I learned about Station F and about HEC, I said, I'm no dummy, I'm going home. You know, I'm going back to where I grew up. I was only here 2 years, I understand that, but I am of French descent, great-great-great-grandmother. But this is where it's at. Or the EU. I can say France first and then the EU, because there's Latvia and Estonia. A lot of people are doing a lot of things. Let's not discount the rest of the EU.
All right, thank you, Tilde. Next question from Legal Analytics. I'm afraid that I'll invest too much in the startup and regret it at some point because I might have missed out on valuable time with my family. Do you have any advice for this?
Oh yeah, here you go. Be ready. You might not like me after this answer. You better figure out what the important parts of your life are, because if you're letting your family go, that's not a good thing. I think this pandemic has proved that work is important, but relationships with other human beings. I'm not married. I don't have children. I have a dog. Everybody in the C3 knows my dog. But I would be nowhere if it wasn't for the friends that I have. And so I make time for my friends and my family. So all I can say to you, my friend, is start over. Put your family first, put your friends up there, relationships, and then add work to that. If you're working more than you're taking care of your relationships, then there's something going on. Call me, write me, we'll talk. I'm happy to talk to you. Don't do it.
All right.
Whoa. Thank you, Tilde. I totally agree with that. Startups, companies are important, but that's not life. Life is friends, family, is soulmates, and of course, COVID showed what is really essential and what are the real priorities. Thank you, Tilde, for this testimonial. Another question, Cheryl?
Yeah, so it's not a question, just this is from Sandrine, who's sharing something she heard from her incubator in relation to time management and Ikigai. And she quotes, people who don't know what they have to do have their time managed by those who know, who do know.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Somebody else is going to manage you if you don't manage yourself. And I promise you, you learn to manage yourself. But the problem with time management courses, for the most part, is their tips and techniques. They never get inside of you to determine what decisions did you make about time that affect the way you operate as a human being. We do exercises in our course. You're going to think we're nuts. But let me tell you, if you talk to some of our graduates, they'll tell you their relationship to time is totally different because they unhooked something that they had hooked. Can I give an example really quickly? We had somebody who was always late, always late. She's late for meetings, she's late for this, she's late for that. You know what it was? She was angry. Really, that's this simple. She was angry at her parents because she had to stop playing with her friends so they could go someplace, and that happened a lot. So she decided she was going to do whatever she wanted to when she was an adult. So if she had to be someplace, she didn't care. She just showed up when she showed up. After she got fired, she realized, maybe I don't want to do that anymore.
I love this saying from Sandrine. That is a similar one for entrepreneurship. Those who never take risks end up working for those who did. But if you don't manage your time, it will be managed by somebody else.
Amen.
That's true.
Amen, amen, amen. Okay, listen, I'm a total goofball about where the slide is. So I apologize. This is where 70 years old and being excited about being with Etienne and Cheryl again just get me completely screwed up. Okay, everybody get a pencil. You ready? Get a pencil or a pen. You cannot screenshot this. It's not going to happen. And I can't even find the chat at this point. That's how off I am, right? So I'm sorry about that. It's just ugly. So it's http:// U like Union, N like Nancy, D like David, E like Edward, C like Cat, I like Isaac, M like Mary, period, com, C-O-M, period, C-O, / all one word, making time, /. Did you get that, Cheryl? And if you could put that in the chat, you just go to that page, just read it, give us your email. We're going to make you happy. Promise. Promise, promise.
Thank you, Tilde. Can you just remove your slide or your screen so that I share a concluding slide?
Hallelujah.
Yeah, thank you. And so normally, there we are. So that's just a selection, since we started with only time, and a selection of timeless songs, because we also love sharing advice about timeless songs. And so you may take a screenshot of that and find them on YouTube. And so I really want to thank you, Tilde, thank all my colleagues, Cheryl. It's a real pleasure. And I think I also find my ikigai while working with MSIE and with all these colleagues, Adrien, Chloé, Svenja, Stephanie. It's really an amazing team, and I think it helps us to meet outstanding people. Until I wish you all the best. It will be a long journey, and so enjoy your journey, because the defense itself is one big thing, and the question is also what's next, of course.
Yeah.
And that's the having projects, enjoying life with one's friends. And so thank you again for having hosted this webinar. I think one day we'll do something about friends, families, soulmates, and the sense of life, and not only free cash flows. You, of course, have to generate free cash flows in order to have the freedom of your that money enables, but that's not an essential thing. And so thank you to all of you. I wish you pleasant holidays with this music, for instance, or other ones, and feel free to share with us other timeless songs. Thank you, Tilde. Thank you, Cheryl. And I hope we'll soon organize another MSIE webinar.
Thank you both.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Tilde, thank you. Etienne, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cute.
Thank you, Tilde. That was fun.
You're welcome. That was fast and furious.
Excellent, just in time. Thank you for this testimonial again.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. If you need anything, let me know. If anything comes in and people couldn't get a hold of anything, just let me know. And I love you. You know that. I love you. I love what I'm doing. I want to jump out of my basement window sometimes, but no, it's all good. It's all good. But at some point, I would like you to meet my supervisor. Okay.
Why not?